next thing I'd like to talk about is the cyclic process of energy generation in a cell, namely the ATP cycle in mitochondria. The chemical compound adenosine triphosphate is usually abbreviated as ATP. Well, first of all, ATP is very, very important because it's the primary source of energy for all living cells. Just like monetary currency, ATP is valuable and ubiquitous, being used to provide energy in a wide variety of metabolic reactions. You could say it's a universal molecule of energy transfer in living things. Hence, ATP is commonly referred to as the free energy currency or coin of the cell as well. Nevertheless, the energy content of ATP is not significantly different from other phosphates. For whatever reason, however, evolution has created an array of enzymes that preferentially bind with ATP to produce energy for driving reactions in all living things. Where do we find ATP? Well, ATP is in the cytosol and the mitochondria in the cell. The cytosol, you may also call it the ground substance of the cell. This cytosol is the fluid portion of the cell that surrounds and contains the cellular constituents, including the mitochondria. Most of the ATP is found in the cytosol, but the major work of energy production is performed in the mitochondria. The mitochondria are known as the cellular energy powerhouse. Why? Because their sole job is to convert fuel, that is, food, to energy. The mitochondria provide energy from the most of the energy-consuming activities of the cell via transferring energy from chemical bonds to energy-absorbing reactions within the cell, particularly mitochondrion-rich tissues. You know, mitochondrion is the singular form of the term mitochondria. Anyway, mitochondrion-rich tissues are those of the skeletal muscles, heart, liver, pancreas, and kidneys. Let's see. Heart and skeletal muscles work hard to meet the body's constant demand for mechanical work. Mitochondria in liver cells contain enzymes to detoxify ammonia, which is a waste product of protein metabolism. How about the pancreas? The pancreas is involved in important biosynthesis, and the process of excretion begins in the kidney. What is common to the tissue of all these organs? Do you know? Charles?
I think they are, all of them are big consumers of energy, for starters.
Bingo! That's it. Those tissues require a lot of energy in order to function. Hence, they have a lot of mitochondria. Okay then, how does the energy cycle in mitochondria work? The ATP molecule is composed of three components. At the center is a sugar molecule, ribose, the same sugar that forms the basis of DNA. Attached to one side of this is adenine. The other side of the sugar is attached to a string of phosphate groups. These phosphates are the key to the activity of ATP. As you may know, tri of triophosphate means three, and so ATP has three phosphates. When the chemical bond holding one of the phosphate molecules in ATP is broken, energy is released. This energy is then used to do work in the cell. What is left over from this process is adenosine diphosphate, or ADP, and a free phosphate. Three phosphates minus one free phosphate are two phosphates. So di of diphosphate means two. Elementary, right? Right. And once ATP releases its energy, most of the resulting ADP returns to the mitochondria to be recycled back into ATP. After ATP forms again in the energy recycling process, it leaves the mitochondria and moves to the region of the cell needing energy. By the way, in order to generate ATP again from ADP and a free phosphate, we need to add energy back to form the bond. As we learned last time, the loss of an electron by a molecule, atom, or ion is called what? Anyone?
Oxidation?
Right. In oxidation, an electron is released or removed. Remember? In this case, electrons released in oxidizing the carbon fuels are used to recycle ADP back into ATP in the mitochondria. This process of energy formation and transfer by the mitochondria is called respiration. Yes?
Professor Roberts, respiration is breathing, isn't it?
Yes, it is. As a matter of fact, the process is essentially breathing. It's called respiration simply because it requires oxygen, just like our breathing, as you said. In any case, in order to understand the system by which, the mechanism of conserving the energy as ATP from respiration, it's necessary to appreciate the structural features of mitochondria. Well, mitochondria have two types of membranes. One is an outer membrane, which allows the passage of most small molecules and ions, and the other is a highly folded inner membrane, which does not even allow the passage of small ions and so, as a result, maintains a closed space within the cell. Nonetheless, to be of any use, ATP formed inside the mitochondria has to be moved into the cytocell of the cell to release energy. At the same time, ADP from the cytocell has to be moved into the mitochondria, where it can be recycled to ATP. Because the inner membrane is impermeable to both ATP and ADP, however, they need assistance from a certain enzyme to keep ATP flowing to the cell and ADP flowing to the mitochondria. These enzymes are located in and on the inner membrane. And when everything works smoothly and oxygen and food, that is, fuel, is plentiful, energy recycling occurs unimpeded millions of times per second in every cell in the body. And also, the energy to create ATP from ADP comes ultimately from the sun via photosynthesis. Plants store extra energy as glucose. It's a natural form of sugar, and is used as a fuel to create more ATP in mitochondria of not just plants, but all living cells. And the final products generated by this whole metabolic system are carbon dioxide, CO2, and water. As you know, carbon dioxide is released when we exhale. Some of the water is also exhaled, and the rest is transported to the kidneys to be excreted as urine with other waste. The next thing I'd like to talk about is the cyclic process of energy generation in a cell, namely the ATP cycle in mitochondria. The chemical compound adenosine triphosphate is usually abbreviated as ATP. Well, first of all, ATP is very, very important because it's the primary source of energy for all living cells. Just like monetary currency, ATP is valuable and ubiquitous, being used to provide energy in a wide variety of metabolic reactions. You could say it's a universal molecule of energy transfer in living things. Hence, ATP is commonly referred to as the free energy currency, or coin of the cell, as well. Nevertheless, the energy content of ATP is not significantly different from other phosphates. For whatever reason, however, evolution